to start. Thanks, Sally, and thank you, Abuna, for having me. As you know, I'm Lucy, and I've worked with children for over 22 years now, and I love anything pertaining to children and parenting. Don't consider myself an expert, but more of like a learner and a sharer. And today's topic really excites me because it is such an important topic when it comes to our children's well-being. I wanted to first... Well, the talk today is based on this book, The Everything Parent's Guide to Emotional Intelligence in Children. I love these series, like The Everything Parent's Guide to, and they have a whole bunch of topics. The reason I love them is it actually gives a lot of practical steps to help guide children. They have adult books as well. But beyond just explaining the topic, like the definition of emotional intelligence, they go through actual practical steps of how we can enhance our children's emotional intelligence. So today I'm literally summarizing this book. Today's part 1, and God willing in the new year we'll do a part 2 series as well. So to start off, when you think of emotional intelligence, what comes to mind? Not all at once. Very nice. Sensing others' emotions around you. Excellent. What else? Sorry? Being in tune with your own emotions. Excellent. Sorry? Empathy? Exactly. Wonderful. That's actually one of the skills that we'll talk about in part 2. Amazing. So, emotional intelligence is fundamental to personal and professional success. And the beauty of emotional intelligence, it's comprised of skills. And that's what really excites me. I mean, it's one thing if we think of, a child is just born this way, so there's not much we can do about it, versus, no, anyone and everyone can enhance their skills of emotional intelligence. And it is a fundamental predictor of success and well-being. Okay. So just for a quick outline today, we'll define what emotional intelligence is. We'll compare it to IQ as well. We'll look at the model of emotional intelligence based on this book, and then we'll go through a few skills today, and we'll continue the rest next time. So today we'll talk about emotional self-awareness, self-regard, self-actualization, emotional expression, independence, and assertiveness. Okay. What is EI? Sorry, guys, it's showing that is it slow? I just want to read the definition, but I think it'd be easier if it pops up. But let me go through the definition. So it involves a number of skills that allows you or your child to understand and leverage emotions in ways that lead to more accurate self-awareness, greater confidence, more effective coping skills, stronger relationships, better decision-making, and more academic and work success. So I was hoping you guys can follow with me on the definition. But basically, being able to... Sorry? Sure. A bit faster? Okay, perfect. Thank you. So, it's going so slow, sorry. So, basically being able to understand how I feel, label what it is I'm feeling, being able to understand what triggered my emotions, being able to understand how my emotions impact my behavior, and how it impacts other people around me. Now, the term was first thought out in the 1960s, and then it was coined in the 1990s. But I believe it started much earlier than that. One of my favorite quotes is from Aristotle. Anyone can become angry. That is easy. But to be angry with the right person, to the right degree, at the right item, for the right purpose, and in the right way, that is not within everyone's power and is not easy. So if you think about it, that's emotional intelligence. Like, I can become angry, but I can project that anger that I got from my coworker onto my child. That's being low in emotional intelligence. For me to be able to understand, I'm angry at this person for this reason, the degree in which I am upset at them should be appropriate to the item or to the purpose. And then my behavior should be, again, equivalent to why I'm upset and to the degree, and how will that impact that person, the way I respond to them. This was in the 4th century that Aristotle said this. But again, I believe that emotional intelligence dates back even further than that. Eventually something will pop up and it will say, be angry, but do not sin, which comes from the Bible. Again, all-encompassing emotional intelligence. Again, to be able to understand the emotion I feel and how to project that properly, that's emotional intelligence. And it goes far beyond that too. So emotional intelligence isn't just about being emotional or isn't just about labeling an emotion. So I was once talking to a mom and we were discussing self-regulation and emotional intelligence, and I was explaining to her, we need to work with your child about emotional intelligence. She's like, nope. My child is high in emotional intelligence. You give him a sad face, they know it's sad. You give him a happy face, he knows it's happy. You give him, a mad face, he knows it's mad. And I'm like, well, that's great. That's the first step, which is an extremely important step to be able to label an emotion. But it goes far beyond that. I'm like, and when he gets angry, what happens? She's like, oh, he throws things. I was like, okay, well, then we need to work on that emotional intelligence of how to respond. And while we're doing this, we can also learn a little bit about our emotional intelligence as well. Because the beauty of emotional intelligence, as I said, it's a skill that must be learned and practiced. This is very key. It does not just come. It doesn't come with life experiences on its own, and is not common sense. So for us to say, you know what, he needs to experience being bullied. He needs to learn how to deal with it. Okay, but if we don't teach him how to deal with it, he's not going to know. It's not common sense. So it is extremely important to understand this factor. If you come away with anything from this talk, it's understanding we need to teach and model and practice these skills over and over and over again, with ourselves and with our children especially. Okay. I need to click the slide a few minutes before I go to it. Okay. Emotional intelligence versus intelligence quotient. So we're very familiar with IQ. So EI versus IQ. They're actually two very different intelligences. There's very little relationship between the two. IQ measures intellectual abilities and potential. It reflects a wide range of cognitive skills such as reasoning, logic, and problem solving. The thing with IQ is it's developed and it's based a lot on a child's genetics, how stimulating their early environment was. So these are things that impact someone's IQ. But with emotional intelligence, as we said, they're skills. And the relationship between them, there isn't much relationship. So you can have a child that has an average IQ, but really high emotional intelligence. And you can have another child that has a high IQ and very low emotional intelligence. What matters most, though, is EI. So EI, emotional intelligence, is what matters most to this child's professional and personal success. So think about it. A child with average IQ, but is highly motivated, very disciplined, has great self-control, is going to do a lot better in life than someone who has a really high IQ, but is undisciplined, unmotivated, and not assertive, for example. And the beauty of it is EI continues to develop, whereas IQ eventually stops and declines. So there's different research out there. So they say usually about the teenage years is when your brain stops developing. I think it's more into your early 20s, where that frontal lobe, which is where all your reasoning is, stops to develop. Some research says in your 30s. But at the end of the day, IQ will eventually stop and decline, whereas EI actually peaks in your 50s and 60s and declines minimally until your 80s. And that is wonderful to know that we can continually practice these skills and get better at them. And again, the beauty about EI, see how wonderful EI is. The beauty about EI, it's a skill in the sense of just like riding a bike. You'll never lose it, but if you don't use it, you might become a bit rusty at it. Now, can personality and temperament affect EI? To a certain degree. It might make some skills easier or harder to acquire. Just like, again, riding a bike. Some kids are going to learn to ride that bike a lot faster than other kids. But eventually, kids will learn to ride a bike. So eventually, everyone can enhance their EI skills. There might be some that some kids are more prone and easier to grasp faster than others. Okay. So then I was going to show you a quick model of EI. But basically, there's 5 areas, and we're going to go through the skills. The book shares about 15 or 16 skills. We'll go through a few of them today. So here's the quick model, which doesn't show. But the skills we're going to talk about, I mentioned earlier. But let's start with the first one, emotional awareness.